Behind the scenes of 2011 Libya's bombing campaign, Hillary Clinton's close ally in his private emails to then Secretary of State have been leaked to the press. They reveal how the UK and France were struggling to get a larger piece of the Libyan cake. Britain is using intelligence to dictate the actions of both the Libyan rebels and the Gaddafi regime, one email said. Diplomats maintain contact with the embattled government to protect British positions just in case the unrest didn't end in a power change. Plus, they were in talks with Gaddafi's son Saif in case he took over power from his father. Well, the UK also teamed up with France, according to another email, in order to establish a semi-autonomous zone in the east, basically encouraging the country's split following Gaddafi's fall. The idea came from Nicolas Sarkozy's advisors. The reason? The brand new Libyan government failed to appropriately reward French firms with contracts. Scandalous, huh? But who's the source? Sidney Blumenthal, a former aide to President Bill Clinton, he's said to be on the Clinton Foundation payroll. Blumenthal was also an advisor for U.S. firms who were seeking Libyan contracts. Hillary Clinton, in fact, wanted to bring him into the State Department back in 2009, but President Obama's aides prevented his appointment. Joining me in the now is Catherine Shakdam, Middle East consultant and associate for the Beirut Center. Thanks for being with us. The New York Times reports that Blumenthal and his sources weren't always accurate in their assessments, and Clinton was skeptical about some of them. But clearly, both France and the UK had and continue to have their geopolitical interests in Libya, didn't they?
Yes, of course. And I mean, it's not surprising, actually, because if you look back into 2011, I mean, France and the UK were quite quick to jump to the gun when it came to Libya and intervene militarily. So you have to go back there and kind of wonder why they were so eager to go and intervene in Libya. And I think you got the answer right there.
Yeah, and obviously these emails revealed that the U.S. knew what was going on. They knew what the goals of their coalition partners were. So how much accountability lies with the U.S. and the State Department here?
But I think that the US were looking at the time to form a consensus and have a coalition on their side. So, of course, they had to kind of, plug in, what their allies wanted to see achieved. And, of course, it's not necessarily in alignment with their own agenda. So they had to allow France and the UK in this case to have some leeway and some freedom of movement.
What kind of business atmosphere, business deals are happening in Libya today?
Well, I mean, when you look at Europe, particularly what Europe wants now is to achieve some level of, energy independence from Russia. And, Europe is energy hungry and Europe needs oil and gas. And I think that Libya, came as a perfect solution to the EU and the UK and France and, and the UK, of course. So, I think that they're trying to basically use, the political channel to try to, to push corporate agendas. But that's something that always, has always happened. And I think that it's actually corporations very often which are pushing for wars because they think that unrest and chaos will actually promote, their own bottom line.
Is it common practice during unrest in a country? I mean, we saw back in Libya in 2011, these emails revealed to have one hand kind of negotiating with the rebels, those pushing for some kind of change, but to make sure you have your ties and connections just in case the person in charge actually stays at the top. With Gaddafi, of course, that wasn't the case, but obviously they were protecting themselves here, yes?
Yes, of course. But I mean, you see this time and time, again. I mean, I think that's actually the name of the game when it comes to diplomacy and politics. And actually, right now in Yemen, I would actually argue that the same kind of deals or backdoors deal are actually happening.
Let's talk more about Yemen. Can you elaborate on what you've just said, that these kind of deals, negotiations are happening in Yemen? Obviously, it's Houthi rebels, a Saudi-led coalition bombing there. What kind of interests are we looking at?
Well, for one, you have to understand when it comes to Yemen, I mean, right now, as things stand, no one is actually sure who's going to win. And it could be a case where we're going to have a stalemate or some form of a draw. So, of course, politicians, US politicians, European politicians, British politicians are trying to, keep the lines of communications open on both sides. And that means discussing with the Saudi and discussing with the Houthi and former President Ali Abdullah Saleh, because as we know, he still has a hand in what is happening in Yemen right now. So, of course, you cannot kind of refuse reality. And the realities are that the Houthi and President Saleh are in power, not completely, but they hold within their hands quite, a great amount of cards. So therefore, politicians and businessmen are still talking to them because they have to. They are very pragmatic when it comes to making money and trying to push forward their political agenda. So of course, they're going to discuss, with former President Saleh and with President Hadi on how to maybe negotiate deals should their faction win.
Catherine Shakdam, Mideast consultant and associate for the Beirut Center. Thanks for being in the Now.
My pleasure.